So, Ned, at the time that Ghost Tree Partners was recommended Position Imaging's way, there was this beginning of a conversation of a potential funding partnership. What other funding sources did Position Imaging already have at this time, right? Break down that existing portfolio of sources and kind of how that colored your strategy.
Well, we're privately funded. So we had a lot of money, 40 something million, I think, in private funds. So we didn't have to go to the venture route. We went with high net worth individuals who really understood the business and what we were trying to build, and were patient enough, because the reality is, with a company like Position Imaging, you needed to put a tremendous amount of work into developing these technologies. These are world-class technologies that needed a tremendous amount of work on to develop and make work and then patent. And you're not going to get that with a typical venture capital firm. They're going to want to see profits right away, et cetera. And so some of these angel investors that we brought in knew the scope of what we were trying to do, and the fact that it was going to take some time to get there. Now it's like we've got our gardens planted, and now we're starting to harvest them, which is really fun. But to get there, it's a long road. So we went on the private route for the first time, which is a lot of herding cats. David, you could probably agree with this and have done some of this yourself. But it is a lot of herding cats. But those cats will help you get through and get you to the long run. I mean, we've also had investments from we have a partnership with an airline. I'll just leave the name out, but partnership with an airline who made an investment in the company, and so. We've been really careful to not bring on either a dominating type venture play, which a lot of people do just because they need the money, or a strategic investor that would queer some of the other relationships we could do with others, right? If you're going to do something with Google, you might not get a deal with Apple, that kind of a thing. And so you got to be really careful with that. So for us, it was really simple. It was get to a point where you can get essentially your technology innovation garden planted and get ready to start harvesting it by proven products in the field, showing the market fits, showing that you not only had good products, but you had the partnerships. So like one of the things David mentioned, which I think is really appropriate for our company, is that we don't feel like we can do this alone. Like, we are very much focused on partnerships and doing this with others, because we do have a very, very long game attitude here. We are going to rule the world eventually. And to do that, we're going to do this with others. And I mean that, I say it half jokingly, but it really is true here. And so, we looked at on the venture debt side, as let's find somebody that understands that modality really well. And a lot of the venture firms, we thought, okay, maybe, but then we came across Ghost Tree. They fully understood that vision for how you get to the long run, the long game. And so it really wasn't very complicated. We needed to get private money until we got to a place that we could start to harvest and build market. And then we had other options available to us. And Ghost Tree just happened to be a really good fit for what we do, who we are, our vision and all that.
Mm. If you had to pinpoint, would you say that there was a specific moment, series of events, or sort of like a light bulb moment where it really clicked and really aligned that Ghost Tree was going to be the right partner, and that David was going to be the right partner for growing or to transitioning Position Imaging into this new growth stage?
No, I don't think there was one moment. I think there were a lot of moments in the discussions with Ghost Tree that made us understand that they were the right fit for us, right? So Ghost Tree, they are willing to work with management team, right? They get very involved. Even the due diligence was really thorough. And in my mind, like I said before, at the beginning of this podcast, I want educated investors, right? If they don't understand what we're doing, then they're not going to get it, et cetera. And Ghost Tree was really, really thorough in their due diligence from all aspects, right? Financially, strategically, on the market side and the commercial side, on the IP side. So that to me gave me comfort. But just to give you an example, one of the things that David's partner Mark said at one point was, he stopped me and he said, "Ned, just to let you know, like, this debt can be kind of expensive." And he was almost like counseling me, like, maybe you should rethink this. And I was like, Mark, like, that's crazy, because I know in the end it's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper than equity at this stage, right? But just having somebody in this space almost not talking you out of it, but really counseling you is really unique. And I think it shows for us, it showed sort of the partnership attitude of a Ghost Tree. So there were a number of moments along the discussion. Plus, I think David and I work really well together. We hit it off right away. And so, I don't think there was one moment like, oh, they're going to be a great fit. I think it was just a perpetual through the due diligence process that kept getting us more and more comfortable with the fact that this was absolutely the right firm.
Best and better, right? I think, a lot of times with these kinds of partnerships, with the idea of taking your company to a new level or a new stage of growth or investment or product development or going public, let's say, I mean, really anything, there's almost a romanticism to that that sort of light bulb moment of, wow, it became clear, almost like you want to craft the narrative and the story for yourself to almost validate the decision, right? But I think what's more realistic is what you said, small moments of reassurance, trust, relationship building, a long-term understanding, not a short-term spark that, says, okay, 40 million, let's do it, but something a little more measured and intentional is likely going to warrant a better result anyways. So, as we think about this larger ecosystem of funding sources too, I want to hear from both of you on this. How would you both advise founders on striking the right balance between different funding sources, between high net worth individuals, bank lenders, VC lenders? What considerations should folks keep in mind as they amass this pool and balance that debt equity ratio?
A lot of it is the stage you're at, right? You in the beginning, you're going to have to bootstrap, and then you're going to have to go to angel investors in my book. And then you're going to get to a crossroads as you get to growth. If you've evolved things, which is a good thing, if you're going to go either venture or you're going to go venture debt or equity, or you're going to go debt. And that's going to be dictated a lot about what kind of venture you've built. Like, we happen to build a venture that was, again, on the long game, built with a tremendous amount of IP that was looking at several really, really big markets. And that, to me, and especially after we spoke with the team over at Ghost Tree, made us more comfortable about the venture debt side. Plus, we could collateralize some of that IP. So that dictated that for us. But another company, maybe something else. They might have a ton of eyeballs on a new app that they're starting to grow like crazy. And that's something an equity firm might do very quickly for them. So that might be the right path. So it's different, especially when you get later stages. In the beginning, it's really bootstrap, angel investors. There's not many other ways, unless you've got an incredible pedigree with a management team that has done it several times before, and they can there's a blank check, which doesn't happen often anymore anyway. But you can go to a venture firm and they'll write you a blank check, and then you're off to the races. But I think that's really hard today.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Ned. And I would say that, having a brand name on the register always feels really good. And other investors look to that brand name to have done the diligence and sort of understand the company and all of that. But it's not always the best thing. Not to speak negatively of those firms. They have one vision, and this investment might be incredibly small in their portfolio, and you don't get all the expertise you'd hope, and you get more direction than you would hope. Ned has a very interesting register of investors who are individuals, but are very deep in the verticals of the company. And it's a really well thought out investor group that works well together and understands the business incredibly intimately, one silo at a time. And, they all understand all of the business, but they really understand parts of the business incredibly well. And I think that speaks, to a well-constructed board and investor list, as well as the company itself. And just to add on the debt side, a little bit closer to my domain knowledge, the pattern before was, if you got some large names on your share register, go out and get some debt. It's a little bit cheaper, and that debt usually required some amount of equity raised at the same time, and then you were off. I think it was too early for a lot of those companies. They didn't have a clear business plan. They didn't have a path to profitability. It was a path to the next 12 months. And taking on debt is very different from equity in the sense that those equity investors could lose everything if the company goes belly up. And I don't think everyone fully understood the dynamics of that. They just thought, well, it's cheaper than equity, so why don't we do it? And we have these brand names, so let's just leverage that. In the current market, you need to be farther along that growth line. You need to be closer to generating a lot of revenue and being free cash flow break even than it was before. And again, I think that's a healthy development and the way it should be. In this environment, it's more along the lines of you're graduating from those venture firms to the growth equity guys. And that growth equity, even though it feels cheap compared to venture in terms of dilution, it's still pretty expensive capital. And if you have a business plan and a nice patent portfolio and or other intellectual property that can be valued, and you can say, like, yes, let's borrow against this, as my partner Mark likes to say, Ned brought up, is interest expense is temporary and dilution is forever. So if you can be at that inflection point of being able to grow and take on that additional capital to grow without having to give up too much of the company, it's extremely valuable to all stakeholders. The management team, the investors, as well as the debt holders.
I think that's close to closing us out there, David. Great advice. Thank you so much for your perspective on that one. Ned, I want to wrap things up with an entrepreneurial question for you. We can hear from David on this as well. Not blocking you out there, David. But Ned, from your standpoint, what should entrepreneurs do to make their ventures more appealing to potential investors, right? Obviously, for Position Imaging, that included, strong leadership, clear vision, but also a strong IP portfolio and a robust and intentional strategy for leveraging that IP, not only to secure more investment, but actually take the company forward. Obviously, that doesn't apply for everyone necessarily, but if you had to generalize or even offer some specifics, what do you think entrepreneurs should be doing to make their ventures more appealing to, again, potential investors?
I think if it had to boil down to one, I think that's a loaded question because there's a lot of things like partners in the field, a good solid financial plan, how are you going to approach the market, how are you going to execute within the market, sales. But I think if I had to boil it down to one, I would say the team. You need a solid team. If you don't have people that are smarter than you in the team, then you're doing something wrong, right? You want to hire people that are smarter than you, know their domain better than you, and that can take this vision, which oftentimes is crazy, right? You've got, we say it here, it's always within the confines of Position Imaging, we follow Apple's mantra of we want to put a dent in the universe. And frankly, I think we're going to get there. I think there's several things we're doing right now that are really, really aspirational, but actually on track, which is exciting. But we're not doing it without the team, right? And everybody needs to buy in on that. And so if you have the right team, you can do, as David said earlier, you can do great things, but you need that first and foremost. If I was going to give any advice, you're not going to do it alone. Get people to help you and make them rock stars.
I would absolutely agree with the partnership points. I would absolutely agree with the team points. Say, keep costs low, make that business model sustainable, make the dollars you bring in last a long time. Those are all good things. But having those partnerships and the team in place, and importantly, create that alignment with your investor, right? The investor wants to know that if something catches on fire, you're going to do everything you can to put it out, because this business means the most it could ever mean to an individual and being the leader of the company. Sometimes that's economic. Sometimes it's just the spirit of it. There are entrepreneurs who are independently wealthy, but will live and die by the company that they're currently running. And, that's what we look for, is that person who, when the chips are down and things are going the wrong way, they don't just wash their hands, pull away and say, I realize my equity's worth nothing, so I'm not doing anything here. You want that person who's going to fight to the very last sort of breath and make sure that they try to make this company successful. Because ultimately, as investors, we only have so much control, and we only have, this. It is an investment among others. However, it's extremely important to us. It's a large part of the portfolio, and we want to have someone who is will be as impacted as we will, if not more, if something happens, and will fight as hard as we will, if not more, when that thing happens. So creating that alignment and demonstrating that alignment is crucial.
And I think on that note of alignment, we'll go ahead and wrap up today's episode of the podcast. Thank you so much to both of you for your perspectives today, for guiding us through this, difficult strategic decision of choosing a funding partner, whether you're in early stages of growth, you're, an entrepreneur in their garage and it's time to bring that business to life, or whether you're an established business and you're in a growth stage, taking your company to the next level, regardless, it's a difficult decision, and bringing someone else to the table, you obviously want to make sure that they want to eat the same food as you, right? So thank you again for helping us understand that dynamic, giving us some examples of that dynamic at work, and again, offering your strategic, actionable advice for our audience. Hopefully they've learned something and now feel a little bit more equipped to maneuver that funding relationship challenge on their own. So again, folks, we've been hearing from Ned Hill, CEO of Position Imaging, as well as David Byrne, Managing Director at Ghost Tree Partners, on today's episode of the podcast. David, if folks want to learn a little bit more about Ghost Tree Partners, maybe they want to get in touch, how can they do so?
Absolutely. You can check out our website at gt-gp.com or email me directly at dbyrne@gt-gp.com.
Yeah, I think our website's a great resource for people. It's position-imaging.com. You can learn a lot, and I think we've got a lot of content and connect with us, contacts, links on that, because there's multiple levels, and I think you could find your way that way. But that's certainly a good place to start.
All right. Also easy enough. Perfect. Ned and David, thank you so much for both of y'all's time. It's really been a pleasure, and hoping to learn more here in the future. Thanks again. And thank you everyone for joining us on this episode of Intelligent Logistics, a Position Imaging podcast. If you like what you heard and saw today and you want previous episodes of the show, make sure that you're heading to our website, position-imaging.com. Again, position-imaging.com. You can also subscribe to Intelligent Logistics on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcast content. I'm your host, Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B. We'll catch you on the next episode of Intelligent Logistics.